changed their mind, and 32 years later,
People would say that that little girl who was left alone, abused, disconnected, that shouldn't match the picture that you're seeing today. And yes, it's taken work and a journey, but this outcome is what you can hope for and expect.
oh, and by the way, thank you for giving me the breath that I breathe. Thank you for giving me.
Trauma relates to overwhelming experience. It's not about the event itself that's precipitated the trauma. It's not about event magnitude. It's the perception of the person of overwhelm and complete lack of safety. And it actually triggers inbuilt biological mechanisms that we're all equipped with innately to maximise our chance of survival. So if we're in a situation of trauma or negative overwhelm, if we perceive that to be the case, automatically our brain is going to move into a different stage of functioning. And everybody would have heard the term fight or flight. It's actually fight, flight or freeze. They're all particular responses to trauma and the attempt to cope with it.
Absolutely possible to recover from a time where, one feels there is no hope and there is no future. At a time I was so subsumed by the past that I lived in the past. Flashbacks were my daily life. I couldn't even imagine a present, let alone a future. But now to be able to plan and look forward to things and enjoy things.
Children in particular often access unconsciously the freeze response because they literally often lack the capacity to fight or to flee. So if the underlying trauma isn't addressed, people can be easily triggered down the track by something quite innocuous. Someone will say, well, how could that possibly upset someone? But the smallest trigger that's a reminder of an unprocessed trauma can take the person back into these strong biological responses that impair daily functioning.
Understanding how my brain works can help me learn how to regulate my own system, how to regulate my own emotional system, how to not just walk around life feeling fear all the time, but knowing that, okay, I'm going into a sympathetic nervous system response when I go into a fear response. I can learn about breathing, I can learn about accessing my body, grounding, using my senses, all those things to help regulate what's happening in my brain even. I can use my conscious thinking, to affect what's happening in my body. One of the most empowering things is learning how to regulate your own system and not just feeling like it's out of control and everything just happens all on its own.
And I was blown away and I was questioning, why can't you speak? And when I went to bed that night, all these visions of when I was under the house with the gentleman that was molesting me. I'd had this experience from the age of 3 to 6 at this point. So I was 6 years of age and I've realised that this is wrong. I don't want to do this anymore.
Somebody may have used drugs and alcohol to survive. Somebody may have used self-harm to survive. They may have used hoarding, various compulsions, various addictions, various behavioural things to survive. But they make sense, like those things have served a purpose to survive. They've had a function. So to understand that that's a strength, that's not just a dysfunction, that's not just you've failed at something, that's your strength because it enabled you to survive. It is a resilience to use coping strategies, actually.
My trauma survivors have taught me a lot about mental health and about how to care for them. The overall thing I would say is, wow, how amazing that you have survived the way you have, given what has happened to you.
You can't do it by yourself. In fact, that's one of the tragedies of complex trauma. Many people have been betrayed and let down in their relationships and they try to cope by themselves, cut themselves off from potential sources of support. There's a culture of secrecy around it. We all need support and relationships are central to that support.
But a few friends that are here, and I will talk about it to them and just say, look, today I'm having a bad day. Nobody in a position of power has ever said to me that it wasn't my fault. And I need that. And I just want a hug.
I think a big part of recovery as well is a sense of feeling reconnected back to belonging somewhere. Because I think survivors often feel so alone and so isolated. I think recovery can also be about learning that my experience is not a solitary experience. Other people have had similar experiences, other people have coped in similar kinds of ways. I'm not alone. Recovery is different for everybody, but I think there's some common elements that can be about being witnessed and learning about safe relationship again. And learning about relationship to self is a big part too. Forming a different relationship to self, a loving relationship to self, instead of a punishing relationship to self.
3 relationships that from the outside looked very different, but they all ended up in the same hole. And I walked into a psychotherapist's office that someone had recommended to me, and I was absolutely devastated. I thought, I am unlovable, I am an educated, attractive woman, and I do not know how to hold a relationship together. I should be better than this, I should know this, should. It was a really dark, hard time. I just felt like such a failure. I walked into the psychotherapist's office and I said, I keep digging the same hole and falling into it. I obviously need to put this shovel down. I don't have the right tools for the job. Can you help me? If I can say anything to someone who's watching this, who's in a really dark, hard place, just don't give up. Please don't give up. Sometimes I call it climbing the mountain, and it is hard work. It's hard work, but it's good work. And if you do the small, bite-sized pieces, you can't do it all at once, it's too overwhelming, but don't be afraid to start. Don't be afraid to start. Don't be afraid to start unpacking it. Because the reward is so worth it. So I just call it climbing the mountain step by step, and one day you enjoy a view that you never thought you'd enjoy.
I can only share from my experience that it's worth the work. The dark spaces can actually be where you open the door, and you don't have to be consumed by those moments, because they're not now. Now is completely different. Life is so much bigger than that. So really trust and share your experiences to evolve beyond that space.
I absolutely believe that people can move into recovery, whatever recovery looks like for them. That's the main thing, having a totally different experience of themselves, of relating to others, of existing in the world, of feeling a part of society, of feeling that people belong somewhere rather than that very isolated and alone sense that a lot of survivors can have. It's totally possible to move more and more and more into recovery.
So be kind to yourself to start with, and understand that you're on a journey. Find something that lifts your soul, Music, art, nature, animals, whatever it is that helps you look up.
The reactive spaces, which I danced in for many years, which didn't allow me to be me. It's like you're stripped of your worth, your beauty, you're stripped of all of those things in those moments in time. However, they aren't who you are. And I have been exposed to a lot more of me. And yes, it's a given. People can heal from this crap. And that's exciting.
I think for survivors, one of the issues, and the most complex issue, is about finding workers and clinicians who they can establish a trusting relationship with. There are interventions that are helpful, that recovery is possible. It's a very hopeful message at the moment with a much greater sophistication. Be guided to the right clinicians and you can be helped.
There have been studies that show very clearly that when people have processed their own trauma, their well-being increases and their relationships are positive.
Thank you for lifting me up to the angels that watched over me. Oh,
What are the special things I do for myself? I exercise every day. I absolutely know that exercise changes my brain. I have a gorgeous group of women that I meet with every week for breakfast. We're all accountable to each other, and we have to be accountable for how well we're looking after ourselves. My spiritual life is important to me. Faith and hope are two things that I hold close.
There's lots of hope and optimism for the future, and you know, as a survivor, there were many, many years when I couldn't have said that. I couldn't believe that, and what was very important for me was that other people held the hope when I couldn't. But living a healthy, worthwhile life, absolutely.